When I was a little girl, we lived deep in a hallway outside of Irwin, Tennessee. It was not the place, it was not the kind of place you find on most maps. And even if you did, you'd probably drive right past it without realizing there was anything back there but trees and sky. The house sat nestled in the bend of a ridge, old and quiet, with woods so dark it looked soaked in the forest itself. It was my grandmother's house, and it had been in our family for longer than anyone could remember. There were stories etched into the walls, and the way the steps creaked, and how the wind always made the front door rattle right before a storm. My grandmother was Cherokee, not just by blood, by soul. She carried the old ways in her bones and treated them with a reverence I didn't understand back then. Her name was Lala, but to everyone who knew her, she was she was just Nanny. She had rules, simple ones. You wash your hands when you come in from the woods. You never leave bread out overnight. You tie red thread above your bed if you're sick. And most important of all, the one she said like a prayer and a curse all in one breath. Never whistle in the holler after dark. I asked her why. Once I was 6, maybe 7. She looked out the window at the line of the trees and said, because the thing that answers ain't ever human. She wouldn't say more, and I didn't push her. You didn't push Nanny. Growing up in the holler, I learned early that the world was bigger and stranger than it let on. There were nights when the woods went quiet, too quiet, like they were listening to something just out of reach. There were times when the wind would carry smells that did not belong: old wood, smoke, rotting flowers, wet moss after a flood. But there had not been rain in days. And every so often, I'd catch Nanny sitting by the fire, whispering things in Cherokee while burning cedar and sage. She said it was to keep the boundary strong. What boundary? asked I asked once. She didn't look up. The one between here and there. Between what walks by right and what doesn't. When I was about 10, I heard something one night that stuck with me. It was summer and I'd stayed up late, lying by the screened window, watching the fireflies and listening to the frogs sing down by the creek. Then I heard it, a whistle. 4 notes, simple, clean, almost like a lullaby. But Nanny was already asleep, and we didn't have neighbors for miles. I sat up in bed and pressed my ear to the screen. A few seconds passed, then, again, 4 notes, the same tune. A little closer. This time I shut the window and ran to Nanny's room. She was already awake, sitting up with her back straight, eyes open, like she hadn't been sleeping at all. She didn't say a word, just handed me a small pouch, sawed in red thread, and told me to keep it under my pillow. Then she sat by the door with the cedar burning until morning. That night I didn't sleep. Not because I was scared. I didn't understand enough yet to be scared. That came later. Would you like to continue? This is where the first real encounter happens, and we start to see that the presence manifests in subtle but terrifying ways. The whistle. Years passed. I grew up, like all kids do, with the pull of wanting to understand what I couldn't. The holler felt smaller as I got older. The creek no longer a magical place to play, but just a muddy stream where I stepped carefully so as not to ruin my shoes. The woods no longer whispered in the same way. What was once a land full of mystery became just a place, but there were nights when that same eerie silence would come over the holler again. The kind of silence that makes you hold your breath, as if the trees are listening, as if the wind is waiting for something to happen. It was on one of those nights that I got brave. I was 15, maybe 16, and I had grown tired of the old rules I had listened to. Nanny's warnings my whole life. Never go out alone after dark. Always carry a knife. If you do, never whistle in the holler after dark. But what if they were just stories? What if it was all just superstition? It started small. I was standing by the edge of the woods, staring into the dark lawn of trees. The air was heavy and thick with humidity, and the moon barely made it through the canopy. My heart raced as I thought about the stories Nanny told me when I was younger, about the things that lived on the other side of the veil, things that waited for you to slip up just once so they could reach through and take you. I stood there for a few moments, the night wrapping around me like a blanket. Then, against every instinct that told me to go back inside, I decided to test it. Just a little whistle. A short tune. 4 notes, simple at first. Nothing happened. I smiled to myself, thinking how silly I had been. After all, Nanny had always been protective, maybe even a little paranoid. It was just a sound, a harmless sound. Then came the reply. 4 notes, same tune, same rhythm, almost exactly the same. I froze. I didn't hear anything move. The trees didn't rustle, but I knew, I felt, something was there. My first instinct was to call out, "Who's there?" But no answer came. The woods were silent once more. I took a step backward, my eyes straining to see into the dark. And that's when I heard it again. The whistle. This time it wasn't just the same tune. It was slightly off. The rhythm was wrong, like a bird trying to mimic a human whistle, but failing just enough to make it unsettling. It was high pitched, sharp like something that didn't belong. I turned and ran, not caring if I made a sound. I tore through the brush, dodging branches and stumbling over rocks, desperate to reach the safety of the house. But just as I reached the back porch, the whistle came again. This time, closer. I don't know how I knew it, but I could feel it. Something was following me. Something was following me. By the time I got to the porch, Nanny was already there, standing in the doorway, with the old cedar burning in her hands. Her eyes were wide fixed on me, but her face was unreadable. "I did not think you would break the rule," she said softly, almost like she had known it would happen, like she had been waiting for me to find out the hard way. I didn't say anything. I could not. My legs were trembling, too much to stand, and my throat felt tight, as if I had forgotten how to breathe. She did not ask me what happened, because I am sure she already knew. Instead, she grabbed a handful of salt from the pouch she kept by the door and sprinkled it in a wide circle around the porch, muttering something under her breath. She handed me a piece of red thread and told me to tie it around my wrist. "Keep it there," she said, her voice firm, "and never let it go." I don't remember how I slept that night. Maybe I did not. But I do remember that before I went to bed, I heard the whistle again, faint, like it was waiting just outside the window. It didn't stop. Days passed, and Nanny did not mention it again. She went about her business, like nothing had happened, like the holler was not full of things that should not be. But I couldn't forget. A week later, I heard it again. This time I was inside the house. Nanny was sitting by the hearth, stitching something by the dim firelight. I was sitting on the porch steps, my bare feet against the cold wood, trying to shake off the unease I could not seem to get rid of myself. I kept telling myself that I had imagined the whole thing, that there was a logical explanation, that maybe it was just the wind or an animal mimicking a sound. But the closer I got to the woods, the more I realized how unnatural the silence was, how it pressed in on the edges of the house. Then, just as the last light of the day faded into the dark, the whistle came again. It was softer this time, so faint I almost thought I'd imagined it. But then it came again, clearer, just behind the trees. 4 notes, the same as before. I stood up, my heart hammered in my chest, and I turned to go inside, but I hesitated. Something told me to look one last time, as if I had to make sure I was seeing what I thought I was. That's when I saw it, a figure, standing just beyond the line of the trees, half hidden by the shadows. It did not move. It just stood there, still as stone. My breath caught in my throat, and my body froze. It wasn't like any person I knew. The shape was wrong, the posture too rigid, like it was waiting, watching, then as if sensing me looking at it, turned and stepped deeper into the woods, just like that, gone. Would you like me to continue? It's been years now, more than 30, but sometimes when the wind is just right, I can still hear the whistle, soft and teasing, just outside the window. I do not know what it is, and I do not want to. I have learned not to question what I do not understand. Still, I never went back to the hallway after that night, not until last year. I had been living in Nashville for a while. The city, lights, the noise, the traffic, it was all so different from the quiet of the hills. I tried to forget about the hallway, tried to move on, but when my mother called and told me that Nanny had passed away, I knew I had have to return to settle things, to say goodbye. So I packed up and I drove back to the old house, the same one that had once felt so alive with memory. But when I pulled up to the property, I felt a knot in my stomach. The house had not changed, but it was different somehow. The trees had grown thick, and the weeds had overtaken the path leading to the porch. Everything was still too still. The air smelled thick with earth and decay, like the holler itself was holding its breath. I didn't expect to stay long. I just needed to take care of the paperwork and leave. But as soon as I stepped inside, the house seemed to swallow me whole. The floorboards creaked the same way they always had. The smell of the cedar and the firewood clung to the walls. It was like nothing had changed at all. But I knew it had. There was something wrong in the air, something that whispered through the cracks in the walls, something that had been waiting. The first night I was there, I could hardly sleep. The house was too quiet, too heavy. I kept hearing sounds outside, the scrape of branches against the windows, the soft shuffle of leaves beneath the weight of something moving. The wind would moan through the trees, and then, just before dawn, I heard it. The whistle at first, it was a distant, a soft, mocking tune that carried on the wind. But I knew it. I knew what it was. It was the same whistle I'd heard all those years ago. The one that wasn't mine. The one that wasn't human. This time, I did not hesitate. I walked straight to the door, opened it, and stepped onto the porch, the cold night air biting at my skin. I did not call out this time. I did not need to. There was no one else left to listen. I stepped further into the yard, my feet sinking into the soft earth. And I listened, listening for the sound that always followed. And then, in the distance, just beyond the edge of the trees, I saw it, the figure. It was tall, too tall, and it stood there, motionless, just beyond the reach of the moonlight. I could not see its face, but I could feel its eyes on me, cold, hollow eyes. I swallowed hard. It had waited for me all these years. It had waited for me to come back. The whistle came again. This time, it was different. It was not mocking or playful. It was pleading, a desperate, desperate sound, like it was trying to draw me in. I could not move. My legs felt like lead. My breath caught in my throat, and I felt a chill run down my spine. Then, without warning, it stepped forward, its long limbs moving with an unnatural grace, and its shape seemed to twist and shift with the shadows. It was close, now, too close, and for the first time in my life, I was filled with the real fear I had been avoiding all these years. The thing was not just a story. It was not folklore or superstition. It was a real. It was there, and I had no idea what it wanted. I did not want to know, but something inside of me snapped. I turned and ran, faster than I had ever ran before. Back to the house, back to the safety of the walls. But as I reached the porch, I had heard a voice, low and slow like a rustle of dead leaves in the wind. You cannot outrun what's already found you. I slammed the door behind me and locked it. The next morning I found the whistle still in the air. It echoed in the distance, a soft, persistent sound that would not go away. It was like the woods themselves were breathing. I did not want to stay in another night, but I did not know if I could leave. The holler had a hold on me, just like it had on Nanny. I realized then that there were things in the land that did not follow our rules, things that moved between worlds, and the only way to survive them was to respect the boundaries they laid down, to follow the rules even when you did not understand them. That night before I left, I went to the creek for the first time since I was a child. I knelt down by the water, and just as Nanny had taught me, I scattered salt into the stream, whispering a prayer in Cherokee. I tied red thread around the nearest tree, just like she had taught me so many years ago, and then I listened. The whistle came again, but this time it was not as close as it was distant. Faint, the sound of something far, far away. I did not stay to see what happened next. I did not need to. I left the holler behind, drove out of the mountains, and I never looked back. I do not know if the thing still waits there in the woods. Maybe it does, maybe it doesn't. But I know this. Once you hear the whistle, once you've heard it call your name, it never truly stops. It's always there, waiting for you to come back, always watching, waiting for the next slip up, the next mistake. And the worst part is, it knows when you will be back. It knows. A few years back, I helped search for a missing hunter up near Hanging Rock. Now I have spent most of my life in these hills. I know the woods outside Irwin, like the lines on my own hands. But that night felt different. Wrong in a way. I still cannot put into words. The hunter's name was Rick Holloway. He was a local, quiet, one of those guys who never missed a season and never needed help getting back. But then his truck turned up, parked at the trailhead, locked, keys on the seat. For 3 days it sat there, before anyone realized he hadn't come home. The sheriff organized a search team. I volunteered. James came too. He has been my friend since we were kids. We were joined by 2 forest rangers, Carl, who had seen everything these woods had to offer, and Matt, young and eager, still fresh enough to believe nothing bad ever really happens out there. We set out just before dusk. The light was starting to drain from the sky, and there was a kind of stillness in the trees. I didn't like it. No wind, no birds. Even the leaves seemed to hush themselves. From the first step into the woods, it felt like we were being watched. We followed the trail beyond the truck, calling Rick's name every 100 yards. No reply, just silence. And the forest pressing in tighter. With every step, it was just past the old mining ruins when we found a first sign, a strip of camouflage fabric torn and tangled in a low-hanging branch. Carl had examined it, said it was definitely from Rick's jacket. That made it real. Not just a lost hiker, something worse. The ruins were half swallowed by moss and dirt, all that remained of the mine that shut down generations ago. Locals have stories about it. Voices on the wind, Many walked into the shaft and never came back. Most folks laughed it off. Those tales, but not Carl. He went quiet when we reached the stones. And then, the woods held their breath. That is, the only way I can describe it. No crunch of the leaves. No distant animals. Even our boots stopped making noise. That is, when I saw it. Standing just past the tree line. Still as the grave. Pale. Too pale. Skin pulled thin like paper. Over the bone. Limbs stretched wrong. Joints were there that shouldn't be. Joints. But the worst were the eyes. Or the lack of them. 2 deep hollows. Blacker than the night. Staring straight at me. No shine. No blink. Just holes. Carl raised his flashlight. The beam hit it. Dead on. Then it was gone. No sound. No rustling. Just not there anymore. We stood there frozen. Even Matt did not say a word. And that boy always had something to say. Carl muttered, something low, almost like a prayer, and turned back towards the trail. We followed, moving faster now, but the woods had changed. The markers we had left, gone. The path bent in ways it never had before. We were not lost. Not exactly. But the forest wanted us to feel that way. Then we found the clearing. A dead tree stood at the center all twisted limbs and dry rot. At its base, Rick's backpack torn. His hunting knife snapped clean in two. Beside it, a trail of blood. Matt moved first. We need to follow it, he said. Carl put a hand on his shoulder. No, whatever did this. But Matt pulled away and ran. We chased him. Branches whipped across our faces. The light was fading fast. Then we heard the scream. Not a cry for help. A scream like something had reached down and ripped the sound out of his lungs. We found his flashlight flickering near the base of a pine. His boot was a few feet away. Nothing else. James was shaky and Carl looked older than I'd ever seen him. He turned slowly and whispered, "We leave now, or none of us go home." We did not argue. We ran. No trail, no compass, just instinct and panic, and the feeling that something was following us. It never stepped out of the trees, but I swear, it was close enough to feel breathing on the back of my neck. When we first burst through the tree line and saw the glint of Carl's truck, I could have cried. We drove in silence all the way back, not a word said. They rolled Rick's case, an animal attack. Same for Matt, closed the file, packed it away. But those woods didn't forget. Neither did I. Carl moved away, said the mountains were too old, too hungry. James stopped going outside after dark. He does not even answer the phone now. Me? I still hike, still walk those woods, but not near Hanging Rock. Never again. Because whatever waits out there, it chose Matt. And one night, when it's ready, it might choose again. Me. I still hike, still walk those woods, but not near Hanging Rock. Never. When it's ready, it might choose again. But here is the part I haven't told anyone. Not even James. A few weeks later, after we made it out, I started hearing things. Only at night, only when I was alone. Whistling. 3 notes, low, high, low. Same pattern every time. Always from the trees. I followed it, just to the edge of the woods. And I swear to you, I saw Matt. He was standing beneath that dead pine. The one from the clearing. But he did not look right. He did not wave. Did not call out. He just stared. And then he smiled. That same hollow thing was behind him. Not close, not far. Watching. And I finally understood. Matt did not die out there. Not really. He belongs to it now. Whatever that thing is, it does not just take people. It keeps them, twists them, makes them part of the woods. So when I tell you to stay out of the Hanging Rock, after dark, I am not trying to scare you. I am trying to keep you from joining them. Keep you from joining them. Because once you're near, once you hear the whistling, it means it already knows your name. And the next time you walk into those woods, it might not let you walk back out. I never liked fog, not even when I was a boy. Walking the ridgeline behind my grandfather's place in limestone, there was something about how it moved. The way it slithered low and silent, curling through the trees. It had somewhere to be. Like it had somewhere to be. Not fast, never in a hurry. But steady. Like it knew. Like it remembered. My grandfather used to say, it wasn't it wasn't natural. Said it was a spirit, all on its own. Fog knows where it's going, he told me once. Sitting on the porch with his shotgun across his lap, the sky going orange. Behind the hills, it do not get lost, but people do. I did not believe him back then. I was 12 and thought I knew more about the mountains than he did. Though the stories were just stories and the woods were only the trees. But now, after what happened last fall, up at Cradle Hollow, I do not think I'll ever step into the fog again. Not willingly. It started with a favor. My cousin Eli had gone into the mountains. Said he wanted to visit the old lumber camp where our great uncle used to work. Said he was tracing the family line, digging up roots and stories before they vanished. He had always been like that. Curious about things better left buried. said the dead deserved to be remembered. Said what forgetting was his own kind of death. He left on Wednesday. Did not say much. Just packed a bag and kissed his wife on the porch. Promised he would be back by Friday. Saturday morning rolled around, and I got a call. His wife was trying not to cry. Her voice tight, like every word she said was fighting its way out. She had not heard a word since he left. No text, no calls. His truck was still parked where the trailhead ends. It wasn't like Eli to go silent. He was the kind of man who called to say he made it across the puddle without getting wet. He did not like being alone. Not really. He just liked pretending he did. So I told her I would go. I knew those woods. I had hunted around Cradle Hollow, camped in those thickets as a teenager, with nothing but a bedroll and a can of beans. I had grown up hearing stories about that place, about folks who wandered too far and never came back. They were not stories you told kids to scare them. They were told quiet, over coffee and French port smoke, like warnings wrapped in memory. I packed light, a backpack, a flashlight, my old hunting knife, and a revolver I had not touched in years. Not because I expected trouble, but because the hills have teeth, if you know where to look. Some things do not bother you unless you forget they're there. I left early, hoping to beat the worst of the weather. The sky was clear when I started out, and the trail was dry underfoot. There was a stillness in the trees that made the hairs on my arms stand up. Though, not quiet stillness. Like the woods were watching me walk in. I did not expect to see anyone, but about halfway up the trail, I found someone waiting. Anna Mae. She stood just off the path, where the trees thin out before the hollow's edge. She was in her 70s, maybe older, but moved like she was younger. Lived off the grid in a sagging shack just past the park boundary. Folks in town whispered about her, said she talked to the wind, said she left offerings in the woods, scraps of food, old dolls, coins with holes drilled through the center. For things that didn't have names, I slowed down. Nodded politely. Didn't expect to see anyone out here. She didn't smile. Just looked me over like she already knew why I'd come. You are looking for the man who don't know how to listen, she said. Ellie? She nodded once. He walked into the hollow. 3 days back, fog was thick that day. Real thick. Like the woods were swallowing themselves. I told him not to go. Did he say anything to you? Anna Mae paused. Looked over my shoulder into the trees like something was moving behind me. He asked if the old lumber camp was still standing. I told him it's rotted down to bones. Nothing there but ghost and mold. But he went in anyway. I waited, expecting more. But she kept staring into the woods. The fog came back that night. She whispered, "Been here since." That wasn't true. The morning had been clear when I left town. Blue sky, dry leaves, and no sign of mist. But sure enough, when I turned the bend and looked down in the cradle, hollow, I saw it. Thick gray fog, coiled low like smoke, across the forest floor. It did not rise, it waited. I thanked her, and I stepped past. I did not want her to say anything else. By the time I reached the tree line, the fog was already licking at my boots, cold, damp, and oddly heavy, like walking through breath. The thing about Cradle Hollow is that it doesn't sit right, even in the full daylight. Something's off. The trees grow too close together. The ground is too soft in places where it shouldn't be. And there's no bird song. Not even on the bright days. It is like something is missing. Something vital. Something that makes the world feel like the world. I followed a narrow game trail. I remembered from when I was younger. The fog thickened with every step, climbing past my knees, my waist, until I could barely see the tops of my boots. My flashlight barely helped. The beam vanished into the mist. Swallowed whole like it offended the air. And then came the silence. Not peace, not quiet, silence. The kind that presses on your ears, makes your head ring. No wind, no insects, just my own breath and the soft crunch of leaves underfoot. Then I saw something up ahead, a scarf, green plaid, knotted in a branch. At eye level, Ellie's. He'd worn it every fall since we were kids. I reached up and touched it, dry too. Too dry. Like it had not been touched by fog at all. I looked around. Nothing but mist and trees. Just as I went to call his name, I heard a footstep behind me. I spun, flashlight aimed. Nothing, no movement. No trail. Just that heavy pressing stillness. But I could feel it, that weight you get when someone's watching you. Like breath on your neck that doesn't belong to you. "Ellie," I called. Nothing. I pressed on. The trail twisted in ways I did not remember. Trees leaned in from strange angles. The bark turned thicker, darker, slicker. And the air, it changed. Damp, yes, but sweet too. Rotting fruit sweet. The smell of something ripe gone bad. That's when I heard it. Whispers. Not words exactly. Not in any language I knew. Just the sound of movement. Like something brushing against your thoughts instead of your skin. Then I saw the first marker. A totem. Stakes twisted into a spiral, bound with old wire and bits of fabric. hanging from a branch at chest height, swaying just slightly despite the still air. I froze. I remembered stories my grandmother told about signs like these. Markers for paths that shouldn't be followed. Warnings for those who still believed the woods had rules. And beyond the totem, I saw something move. A shape. It was tall. Too tall. Thin and long and wrong. Its limbs stretched like pulled taffy. Its head tilted without sound. It did not walk, it drifted. Smooth. Effortless. I dropped low. Killed the flashlight. Held my breath. It glided between the trees. Never bending a branch. Never rustling a leaf. Just silent motion. Like it didn't need to touch the ground at all. And then it whispered, not aloud, in my head. Go back. It wasn't a suggestion. It was a command. But before I could obey, I heard a scream. Ellie. Somewhere ahead, raw, real, human, full of fear. I did not think. I ran, flashlight back on. Legs pumping, heart clawing at my ribs. The forest blurred, the fog thinned, just enough to reveal the shapes, buildings, or what used to be buildings. The old lumber camp, cabins sagging inward, roofs caved, metal tools rusted to dust, everything gray and rotting. And in the middle of it all, Ellie. He was on his knees, trembling, mouth open in a scream that had no sound left. His eyes were wide, unblinking. He looked up at my lips. At me. Lips quivering. Don't look at it, he whispered. Too late. I turned and I saw it. It wasn't a creature. It was the fog. Given form. A towering figure, gray and swirling, with limbs that split and reformed. Faces flickered across it. Surfaces, faces I knew and didn't know. They opened mouths to scream, to cry, to beg. None of them made sound. It did not walk. It rolled forward. Silent and endless. It reached for Ellie. I did not think. I grabbed him, pulled him to his feet, and ran. He stumbled, but I dragged him. Branches clawed at us. The path vanished. Time stretched. And then we were outside the hollow. Just before dawn, we staggered to Anime's shack. She did not ask questions, just opened the door, eyes heavy with knowing. Ellie did not speak again, not a word, not a sound. He just sat by the window, staring into the trees. At night, he would hum, tuneless, low, like he was trying to remember something he had been told to forget. A week later, he was gone. Walked back into the fog. Sometime before dawn. No one has seen him since. Anime says the hollow doesn't give back what it takes, only borrows. And when it wants something, it takes again. And the fog, it still curls low. Outside town, waiting like it knows my name. And I saw it. It wasn't a creature. It was the fog. Given form. A towering figure, gray and roiling, its limbs constantly shifting, smoke and bone, and memory twisted together. Where a face should have been. There were dozens flickering, like reflections on black water. Some were strangers, screaming in the silence, Some I recognized. My grandfather, my mother, myself, all staring back. It did not walk. It descended, like falling smoke, slow and sure, spilling through the trees, reaching without moving. The air grew cold, enough to burn. The pressure in my skull made my vision pulse. And then I heard them, the voices. They were inside me, not speaking, pressing. 1,000 thoughts. Not my own. Grief, rage, longing. Echoes of everyone who had ever stepped too far and never found out their way back. They were not whispering anymore. They were screaming. I tried to move, but my legs locked. I could not look away. Eli grabbed my sleeve. His fingers were bloodless and trembling. "Do not look at it," he mouthed. Tears streaming, but I already had. And something saw me back. The fog surged forward. It did not touch Eli. It passed through him, and something left him as it did. He went limp in my arms. Not unconscious. Not dead. Like the scream he had been holding inside had finally escaped and taken everything with it. His eyes stayed open, but they didn't see anymore. I don't remember running, just flashes. Branching staring, blood in my mouth, breath that never came fast enough. When the world made sense again, I was on the ridgeline, my lungs burning. The sun was rising, weak and colorless. Behind me, the hollow was full of fog, full like a mouth that had not eaten in days. I brought Eli to Anna's May shack. She opened the door before I knocked, like she already knew. She never asked what I had seen. Just laid him on a cot and sat beside him, humming something low and old. A song with no words. Something meant to keep the dark at bay. He never spoke again, never blinked, never slept. He just sat there, staring. Days passed. One morning I woke up and he was gone. No tracks, no noise. Just the door swinging open. Anna May didn't look surprised. Sometimes she said the fog don't take you at all. All at once. Sometimes it leaves enough behind to find its way back. And the worst part? He did not scream that time. He went quiet, like he remembered something. Now I don't walk the ridge anymore. I do not camp. I do not hunt. When the fog rolls in, I lock my doors and turn every light on, though I know it will not help. Because some nights I hear it outside, not knocking, not howling, just waiting. It knows I'm still here. And one day, soon, it's going to remember why it let me go. The Wren farmhouse stood hunched against the Appalachian hillside, like it was trying to disappear into the trees. Time had peeled its paint, curled its roof, and turned its windows into blind eyes. But still, it remained quiet, weathered, and alone. When Thomas inherited the house from a great aunt, he barely remembered. He did not think much of it. He only knew it was old, empty, and paid off. His cousin Elijah saw opportunity. Thomas called it a pit, but Elijah called it character. Where Thomas saw rotten mold, Elijah saw beams cut from native oak, hand-poured stone footings, and nails driven by blacksmith hands, long buried under red clay. They came with borrowed tools, a beat-up truck, and plans. Maybe they would restore it, maybe sell it, maybe even live there. The nearest paved road was 11 miles away. The nearest neighbor lived behind 2 tree lines and a hollow creek that never dried. Perfect. Thomas just wanted peace, quiet, a fresh start. But the hollow does not give peace. It trades it. And sometimes it does not give anything back at all. It started with a sound. Thomas was tearing up the kitchen floorboards when his crowbar struck something solid. A hollow clang, like iron struck with stone. They cleared away the old pine planks and found a square of dark rock, set flush with the subfloor. It was not natural. It had clean edges. It had hinges. There was a ring to lift it, and a keyhole packed with hardened wax. "What the hell is that?" Thomas asked. "Root cellar?" Elijah guessed. Thomas ran his hand across the surface. "No, this is older. Way too deep. That night, they brought it up in town. The general store was dim and dusty, lined with canned food and mason jars full of pickled eggs. Not one of them were touched. Mabel, the owner, squinted when Thomas asked about the old Wren place. "Y'all found it?" she asked, voice crackling like dry wood. "I figured the earth taken that place back by now." "We are renovating it," Elijah said proudly. "You boys brave or stupid," she muttered. She went quiet when they mentioned the stone hatch. "That wasn't for food," she said. "That was for silence." Thomas frowned. "What's that mean?" She looked out the window toward the mountains. The Wrens had 4 kids. Disappeared back in 1880. Something. No bodies, no signs. Just gone. Folks said you could still hear 'em under the house, whispering. Said their pa sealed that cellar so nothing could ever come back out. She looked them both dead in the eye. "You want to live in that house?" "Do not listen. Do not answer." "And do not open that door." Whispers in the wood. They did not open it. Not that day, at least. Not the next day either. But at night, the house changed. At first it was just creaks, groans of old lumber, adjusting to heat. Then came footsteps. slow, deliberate pacing beneath their beds. Then came the whispers. It was Thomas who heard it at first. A single word, barely a breath. Elijah. The next night, Elijah heard his name too. The third night, it was not a name, it was laughter. High-pitched, giddy, but never quite right. Wind, Elijah said. Just the wind. Thomas did not argue, but he did not sleep either. The keyhole crumbled under the tip of a chisel. The wax fell like old bone. Elijah gripped the ring with both hands and pulled the hatch. Scream as it opened, a stairway spiraled down. Carved from solid stone, slick with condensation. The air that rose up was cold and sour, like something that had been rotting far below. They had brought Lanner's tools, rope, and without knowing why, they brought the gas mask. They had found in the attic a pair of old World War relics with cracked filters and foggy lenses. Why would they have these? Thomas asked Elijah. Elijah shrugged. Same reason they sealed the cellar, I guess. The air grew thicker, heavier. Their boots echoed against the stone. The lanterns flickered. At the base of the stairwell, the stone opened into a corridor of some sort, wide, arched, and lined with alcoves. Within those alcoves hung gas masks. Not 2, not 10, but hundreds. Child-sized. Some were leather. Some metal. Some looked like they were stitched from things that were not meant to be worn. Their eyepieces watched them. Thomas touched one. It twitched. He recoiled. We should go back up. But Elijah was already walking. They didn't notice it at first. Just thought it was the flicker of the lantern. But the deeper they went, the more the stone walls seemed to expand and contract like a lung. The air hissed softly behind them. Footsteps followed, too small to be their own, too soft to be echoed. They found a fork. One tunnel continued forward, the other descended again. The walls were warmer near the left tunnel, damp. Elijah turned. Hear that? Thomas listened, a laugh. Then a voice muffled through a gas mask. Play. Playrooms and bones, the left tunnel ended. In a circular chamber. Inside were beds, dozen of them. Cribs, tiny bunk beds, even straw mats. Each one had a name carved above it. Beneath each of them was a name and a mask. Some still held heads, small skulls. Others held nothing at all. The walls were covered in drawings. Stick figures, trees, a house, a staircase, a door. Under one of them was written, "We did not want to stay." Another said, "They said we had to breathe." Elijah sat on a bed and stared at the mask in his hands. Thomas grabbed his shoulder. "We are leaving." Elijah did not move. "I want to see more," he whispered. They breathed through the stone. Thomas left them there. Stormed back the tunnel up, but the stairs were not where they had been. The passage twisted, shifted. He turned and found only more corridors, more rooms, each one filled with artifacts, drawings, masks, scraps of children's clothing, and always the whispering. It never stopped. Sometimes it cried, sometimes it begged. Sometimes it simply said, "Come home." He started to feel it in his lungs, like something was trying to crawl inside. He put on the mask, and the whispers stopped. He found Elijah again, standing before a wall of pulsing stone. The wall breathed in rhythm. In and out, the stone stretched like skin over a rib cage. In the center was a black circle, a mouth from it came the voice, soft, young, unnatural. "We are waiting." Elijah turned. His eyes were black. His mouth was open, but the voice was not his. "They came down here to breathe," he said. "To be clean. To be still." Thomas backed away. "We do not belong here," he said. "Yes," the voice replied. "You do." Thomas ran. He ripped the mask off and choked on the air. The tunnels pulsed around him, trying to drag him back. He screamed for Elijah, but the voice that replied wasn't his cousin. It was a child. No more sun, no more sky, just breath. Thomas reached the stairwell. This time it was there he climbed. Behind them, the breathing grew louder. At the top he looked back. Elijah stood at the bottom watching him. He did not speak, did not move. Just stared. Thomas hesitated and then he shut the hatch, sealing it with concrete bolts, boards. Every night the house whispered, but Thomas no longer listened. He stayed for 3 days, then 2, then none. The farmhouse sits empty now. The grass has grown back through the steps. The tree presses closer, and beneath the kitchen floor, the stone door waits. The mask waits. And if you stand very still and hold your breath, you can still hear the children whispering, "Come play." So if you ever inherit a house, one that's buried in the mountains, where the trees grow too close and the wind never stops whispering, do not look beneath the floorboards. Some doors were never meant to be open. Some voices were never meant to be heard. And some people, they were never meant to come back. Not from there. You've been listening to Rural Nightmares. Sleep late, and whatever you do, do not answer when they whisper your name.